Here we are, Recuperative Friday, where we'll use the floor and sitting, and of course you can adapt it if you can do the whole thing, everything probably. There's food in each orientation to the planet that you might do. So to start, while you're up and sitting or getting there, I just wanted to review schematically what we're going to do, because when we're laying down, it's harder to see the screen. But we're on our way to starfish. The sense of that, if you take your hands while sitting, that the right below the navel up to the adrenal, this sort of this connection from front to back. And one way to kind of feel it, I could do it as a linear, stick like that. There's this diagonal connection. If I take a fabric, I could let that be slack. And really that's just me being slack. I'm kind of collapsed. And many of us have that underlying collapse, especially for various reasons early on. And then when we need to get up, we'll often prop. So it'd be like be collapsed, and then to get up, we prop ourselves up like with our bones. And then often that can stiffen. So see if you can feel that difference between a collapse and then a propping up. And then something where you basically got a chance to build the musculature to get yourself up. And so when you're up, it's almost like you're ready to bounce. You're ready to go somewhere else versus kind of static locations and springy. And all of them are important to life, and all of them are important to understand. So we aren't going for one particular right way. We're wanting to see the effects of them all. So watch out for going, oh, I'm going to learn to do this and keep it. It's more, I'd like to spend some time in that collapse and feel that difference. And then just notice what happens if I begin to use my arms from that collapse. Note how that feels. How integrated do your arms feel from collapse? Then prop yourself up, kind of come up, lift up from here. It often gets that up. This is where I lived. I was up and over but that was coming from collapse. So often if somebody is in the held up, in order to find the spring, I had to really let myself collapse, which was like really hard to go to emotionally, let myself be here, collapse. So many of us need to spend some years in collapse in order to re-find spring. So notice if I'm propped up, so collapse and I use my arms, how my arms are integrated. I prop up and note how the arms feel. So for me, it's a slightly different route where they come from when it's up, when it's down. And then if I come from spring, almost like the only way I know how to get there is like I'm pushing into the ground. I'm ready to come. Whatever that is, come to something different than the collapse and the prop, the spring we talk about. And then notice the use of the arms. But this is what we're going to play with, the way the springy organization is rooted on that ability. If you take your hand to your mouth and your face to curl in that energized way. And then it's like the first way we open to the world, we reach into the world is with that mouth. It's not the mouth pulling away. It's like the mouth following the nose. So I'm coming up from this charged curling, charged up, which could take me into an extension or into a curl, but it's energized through, out of which the arms emerge, rooted to the feet. That's sea star, starfish. So if anywhere along that is vague, that's a place to call to do a lesson. We can work with that. And your next set of lessons is coming any day. But if you can, and we're going to work with this on the floor, but I just wanted you to see that's the landscape of today's class. So let's start like on the the ground, and we'll do it in various orientations. Start in baby ball if that's comfortable. You could have a pillow under your head or in between your legs, that you could get curled, but curled with it's energetic. Versus if you go there, the only way to find out if it is really collapse. And then let there be like I'm actively curling around the ball, the pillow or whatever, or actively curling around the space. And then I'm resting. I'm active and I'm resting. And then grip, feel that. That's different. If I'm confusing activation with grip or excitement or fear, whatever, versus, so there's a calm, energizer, there's a grip, and there's collapse. That's a practice. That's not a one-off. This is nothing to get. This is a practice. It keeps giving you information for years. And then from here, we'll take a little time, as our work always is following what feels good. So for a moment, just play with a little skin sense, letting yourself move what's essential to you that I would never know, just for the day, for the night's sleep or lack of sleep, whatever the reality was. Like I can feel I need to do a lot of backward arcing. I think it's from all the work at work. Or that I don't need isn't the right word. It's delicious. It's where I'd want to hang. Where do you want to be or move? Maybe you've been so wound up with busyness, you actually need some collapsing. Resting to recuperate. And just because of our limitation of a class time, note for yourself, if you actually feel like you could do that for another hour and a half, maybe give that to yourself sometime when you're on your own. For our purposes, if we come back to the curl, having just followed our own direction, if you just touch your face, lick your lips, and just play with that first moment as if you were going to go somewhere from the curl, from that, I'm like something interests me, the smell I want is over, just maybe to my side. But just go in the first 2 inches of the movement, like that first initiation that takes you from curl to a little bit of uncurling. Just notice if you've got that charged up, if you sense that connection, that the mouth movement, the sacrum, the coccyx moves, engages at the same time. My foot, if I was pushed up against something, like a ball inside my own bubble or ball or a womb, that foot to mouth connection. And if you need to see it in me, it's like, I'm here, I want something to get there. I'm got the foot pushing, charging up that central direction, head to mouth to head. And we've done a lot of this, and there are a lot of videos, if you missed those classes, to go back to, because I want to get us to beginning that next phase. So if you take it and go to whatever degree you understand and play with that, begin. I think it's easy. It's kind of great on the belly. If you come to the belly, that first movement, I'm curled on one side, open on the other. And as I want to see something just above me, just at the level of my forehead, my connection is through my feet, and then my arm comes in to bring my head up. It's a whole system movement. My arm is supporting my back is supporting my arm, my feet supporting my arm supporting my foot, head. So the movement that's choreographed to play with this looks like this. It's that I come up, I see in this moment, I'm like in tree frog here. I've got that support of the limbs. It's engaged, and I could practice collapsing or propping up here, or having that spring where there's an engagement that kind of brings me around to the other side. I come up, I'm going to turn back, I'm going to come back because of the speaker. So if you stay on the other side, but it's that same thing, as something draws me up, and as you begin to use my arms and my legs and my head, there's an integration, or I can interfere with it, or I can stiffen it, or it gets interfered with, not. So just let you do the baby. It's the baby roll from our belly. And this is a wonderful example of like a trajectory, but it's a curve. I want something. I'm up. That's a direct movement. I'm through. Then it's like I've had too much. That's enough. And I curl back in. I open to the world. I'm interested. I want something. We've got that desire that is what ignites us. We want. And then I'm like, enough. Curling in. And if you can find the movement of your toes, all this rotation in the legs that happens here. The spine, what can you discover? Like, make this your own. If you're trying to get it right, watch for that. Just say, there's something here. What can I figure out and enjoy? With the basic landmarks of one side's curled and one side's extended. And if I had a bigger space, I might be just taking this into lizard, into moving through the space. Backwards, those from feet. And if this is hurting or hurting your lower back, that's when it's like that sense of that adrenal connection. You might want to just do the part where you come, here's your head on the ground, I contact the earth, and I come up just like in half an inch. If I'm collapsed, all the pressure will be in the lower back. Or if I'm propping up, I'll be coming up from the lower back. If I'm integrated, if I have that adrenal connection, everything we've worked on up to now, that first moment, it's like all of me. It's like from the floor. And again, you can do micro movements to feel that difference between, for me, I'd use words like a knitted versus like splayed open in the belly in the front. Or I'm knitted versus sucked in. So this becomes that radiation of the limb. So that, like, if you can play with the lizard on the belly for some time, let's come on to our back for a moment. And put your hand in that connection right underneath your belly, sensing that connection to the adrenals, or just under your ribs. And then even on your back here, let that collapse, let that get slack. Squeeze in and feel the effect of either, and if you just have your arms up here like you've got a ball, an air ball in your hand, you're touching something, so you're a little bit off the ground. I collapse, the feeling of what happens to my arm structure. I squeeze, what happens, or I'm springy. Now I can actually feel if I had an elastic, I think it would change the shape of it. So this is for people with shoulder issues and neck issues and upper back issues. Often it's if we get divided by some habituated way in life, things are collapsed or held, then the arm doesn't get the support of the foot through my center. I'm just moving from the upper. So laying on the ground, you can kind of play around with, just like as if you're cut in half at the belly and your ribs and your arms move in a chunk. Imagine holding something you're doing. Versus when we have starfish, we've got that central charge, mouth to tail. I'm curling, but that comes with my foot. Begin to play that when you want to reach out, my mouth is going, my eyes are going. Now I want that with my hand. Can I pause there and feel that right from my foot? The way I'm going to get there, versus the legs are flaccid and I just want to reach. So take the gentle hypothesis that this matters. It may or may not. You've got to figure it out. And see if you can feel the difference between beginning to want something into the world, to have a trajectory, a direction, and having the support all the way underneath it so you can get to it, or being cut off from the support and working for it. We used to describe that as effort. I think it is a Bonnie thing. Effort is the feeling of working against yourself. You're not utilizing all that's available to you. Again, of course, that's not a thing you do. That's what happens. So as you play with that, we could have a couple of choreographed movements. The version of the baby roll-ups on the back side is where my elbow and knee come together. The opposite side is extending, and my fingers and toes are reaching in. This is like a peripherally led movement. The ends curl. And you could feel the difference between being centrally initiated, where I'm just starting from my middle, and it's like the limbs are floppy. Where this is, as my limbs engage, as if somebody had their hand on my foot that bends my knee. It's really my foot and my hand bend the joint. See if you can play with that. Boom. And nothing much is happening on the other side yet. As I curve, and this is totally a choreographed movement. It is not a natural movement. I doubt there's a baby in the world that's ever done this. I curl in, I extend, I reach with my fingers to as far as I can go, like I'm bringing string in, and then I'm curled. The top side extends. I can feel that moment where I've got bottom to top, full volume. And then I open. Fingers and toes, bending, fingers and toes, reaching, curling, that activated curling like I'm hugging a favorite stuffed doll or something. So it's sequential, this starfish feeling, the sea star movement gives us that natural order of motion. Something leads and the rest follows. It's got, that's conceptual. The feeling of it is it's smooth. It's smooth. And you can just adapt this now, like just let fingers and toes extend so that something leads and something follows, but it goes all the way through. I'm still so whole. I'm still organized around the umbilical cord, around the navel. The periphery extending. And then the most classic of the Barteniev starfish movements is you come back to just an extended, your legs are away from center. You know, when we do heel rock, we've got them right under the joint for that integrity here. Because of where we're going, we're set up on these diagonals. I like to put my hand back here to remember that adrenal collapse, grip, spring. Every time there's new knowing of this on the cellular level. This is not top down, and we start with the top down, but where we want the learning to happen is in the tissues. What feels good? And this is like, many of you know it, but I'll just describe it as if I've got a piece of chalk or something I'm going to start with my right fingertips, and I'm drawing a big circle, aiming toward the other left diagonal. I'm going to kind of look at it, and then it's as if someone pulls me. I've got my energy through that opposite foot. I don't know, can you hear me? I should do it this way. I'll do the other side. So this is activated, and I've got tone between to end up on my belly. I could lead with a foot and sense this diagonal through. It's actually the same side, but it's crossing. Or it could be, many people do this, is when we lift our limb, it's that thigh initiative from that center. I lift the limb, and then I like pull my belly gets left behind. And so I end up in an arc and then pull myself over. So it's choppy. I lift my limb, I go, oh, I want to move my arm, and I end up pushing my arm. My head gets lost back here, my belly gets lost. So see if you can see that choppy. This is out of sequence. I'm ahead of myself versus I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. I've got a clear trajectory, which is smooth, efficient, integrated. That's the feeling of directionality, sequencing. when it's supported and integrated. So play for a few minutes, wherever you need to. You might want to be back on the curling and that central tone, or maybe you just want to improvise with starfish, or do the crossover, the baby rolls. Just play for a little while to find a practice around understanding this practice of Sea Star for yourself. And a gentle reminder here, if you find yourself, if you know, for many of us, rules or something can feel supportive. If you find yourself going, this is the right way, this is the wrong way, or I should move like this, I'm not supposed to move my leg over, that isn't this work. That isn't a practice mind. The point of this is never a conclusion that this is the right or wrong way. It's like that right and wrong thinking will kill curiosity. It kills learning. The goal of this work isn't to then know it and be done. The goal of this is more interest, more pleasure in exploring ease. So notice that, because I'll often see that in people's writing. It'll be of making a rule, you know, like often a quote. She said, don't do this or do this, which I'm not actually saying ever. I hope not. That's a pedagogical, but pedagogical is for our own learning. It's not the pedagogy. The first place to apply pedagogy is to yourself. So that watch out that when you're teaching or working with someone, you end up saying, well, here's the way to do this so your arm doesn't hurt. We don't know that. But we can explore that's why comparisons. I really want to get to know the collapse when I'm sitting and doing sessions over the screen. Am I there toned and collapsed? Am I propped up? What can I play with? But since most of us have had many, many years of the learning is answering this quiz question, what's right or wrong, it's really natural to turn experiential learning into a set of rules. So just note that. Oh, I tend to like making rules. The sooner you can figure that out about yourself, the sooner you can explore, well, what else would I do? I have no idea what I would do. That's what was for me. I have no idea what I would do if I wasn't looking for the good use. Like 30 years later, I'm still playing with that shift. So here is our Sea Star nature. You can begin to so much in the crawl position to play with, but we just got as far as the most basic starfish. You could play in life with that. I'd love another 3 hours right now, but here we are. With the whole of our being, the ability to collapse and stiffen and spring, to be curious, to make rules, to be supportive, to be disintegrated. Here I am with all that potentiality in the world, of the world, in the flow of learning or curiosity. Allowing. Awake to my sea star. Got to get my toes in there to my sea star. And that adrenal support, or not, no adrenal support. perfect that it's adrenals, that whole cortisol thing. I'm supported. Okay. Taking a moment just to air flows out. Air falls in. Thank you. Thank you.